Welcome back to the third rail, guys. This is your host, John Teeter. We've got a whole lot to talk about today, starting out with the Democrat Party. They are attempting to steal the Pennsylvania Senate seat from Republican McCormick. Let's get into it. So, the Democrats are suing because they want to count ballots that came in illegally, either postmarked after the date or without a postmark, without a date. The state legislature, they pass laws to prevent election fraud. And so what's happening is they want to count these ballots. It's a very close race. It's 17,000 vote difference. And Bucks County, Philadelphia County, and I can't remember the third county. There's a third one that they are all attempting to count ballots that shouldn't be counted. This is being reported by Fox News. The Democrat Senatorial Campaign Committee filed a lawsuit Monday over counting of dozens of provisional ballots in Bucks County, alleging rejecting the ballots violates both the due process clause of the Constitution and other protections by voters. This is what got brought in all this excess. It used to be that if you had a mail-in ballot, it was because you were out of the country, or you weren't going to be home on vacation, or you're in the military. And then during COVID, we all know what happened. They made mass mail-in ballots a thing. And so now they're trying to count these ballots illegally that break the laws that got passed after the COVID debacle. So that's what's happening there. They're really trying to steal that seat. They can say they're not, and that they just want to count all the legal ballots, but they're not legal ballots. So never trust the Democrats. Never trust a lot of these counties that, you know, that are kind of up in the air. McCormick won. It's now November 21st. Election day was on the 8th, so it's just about 2 weeks after the election, and for some reason, they're still counting. Go figure. The next story we have is that the Democrats are floating a shadow cabinet. This is also reported by Fox News. They are trying to put in their own cabinet to try and influence our foreign relations, to try and stop Trump's cabinet. They're definitely going to try to not allow several of the cabinet picks, including my favorite one, Matt Gaetz, as Attorney General, because Matt Gaetz is known for going after corruption, and they don't want the corruption to come out. So there's several Democrat areas. It's almost as if they're trying to separate off the country and have their own government. North Carolina lawmaker Wiley Nichols, he's proposing that Democrats create a shadow government to oppose the federal government, basically. He says, across the Atlantic, the British have something we don't, a team from the opposition that mirrors the government's cabinet members. They watch the cabinet closely, publicly, challenging, scrutinizing, and offering new ideas. It's another form of checks and balances. We have checks and balances. We have the legislative branch, which doesn't really do their job. If they did, then we would not have all these wars we've had, because they've all been done via executive action, but the legislative branch doesn't want to do their job. Then we have the judicial, which is a Republican majority at the moment, but it's not really Republican or Democrat. I mean, it's, do you interpret the law as it was written at the time it was written with the original intent behind it, or do you think that words really don't have meanings, and since the words evolved, then we can change what the laws mean because the words have changed, which is the left-wing view of the law. And then we have the executive, which for God knows how long has been basically running with impunity. That's both sides, not just the Democrats, passing everything by executive action because nothing can get done through the legislative branch because they all obstruct each other. And honestly, it's good that they obstruct each other because the whole point of the branches is to stop the government from doing all this crap that they're doing. It's so that government does move at a snail's pace. So the legislative branch doesn't really do anything except try to pass a bunch of omnibus bills, which they should, God, if only they could, pass a rule that all bills have to be just one item at a time. But what they do is they sneak in a bunch of stuff, so they make deals. Say there's a bill for the border, like there was the supposed bipartisan border bill. Well, that should just be, we're going to spend this much money to up our border security, and that's it. That should have been the bill. But the bill was, we're going to, well, there was a lot more to it than even just regular border security. There was, we're going to allow X amount of people in, and after X amount of people get in, then we're going to start tightening the border. And also, $60 billion to Ukraine. I don't know how many billions of dollars to Israel and how many hundreds of millions of dollars to Palestine. And God knows what else they put in, because they make these bills so big that it is impossible for the Congress people to read them. And then you basically just have the good people saying, no, we're not going to vote for this. And not all the people that don't vote for it are the good people, but, you know, like your Rand Pauls who are against spending, your Thomas Masseys, they will pretty much vote no on anything that sends money away. And then you'll have basically everyone else will fall in line according to party lines. They call it bipartisan, but it wasn't bipartisan at all. Bipartisan just means that they're each putting in things that they want, and the American people are getting screwed. That's really all bipartisan means in this day and age. And when a bill is truly bipartisan, just know that you're getting screwed. So they're trying to put in a shadow cabinet. Again, shadow cabinet. So we don't like that the orange man won. So we're going to put in our own people to go talk to other governments, to try and set up deals for the individual states, which I'm a states' rights guy, so I'm okay with states setting up deals as far as, you know, their own like trade deals and stuff like that. That I'm okay with, as long as they don't go against what the federal government is doing, as far as, like, for instance, when Trump puts in his tariffs, which are going to help American businesses and help bring jobs back. Like, yeah, obviously, I don't think a state should be able to do that, but outside of things like that, states should be able to make their own deals. Like, if Texas wants to export oil, as long as they're not exporting to, like, a enemy of the country. You know, I don't see any issues with that. But what they want to do is try and get around Trump's tariffs. They're going to want to try and talk to other countries. Like, for instance, California, they had put in something a while back where they were going to stand behind, I believe it was Ukraine. They were officially being a supporter of Ukraine, even though the country was split on that, I guess in advance of Trump's election, because let's face it, we've all known that Trump is going to win especially ever since the debate, and especially since Trump got shot. But Democrats already knew. There was polling, internal polling that got leaked from Biden's team that said that they knew he was down Trump would have won 400 electoral votes, which is like even bigger of a landslide than what happened. And they've known that for a long time, I'm sure. So the Democrat states were trying to make statements that they knew would contradict what Trump would want. So not good, but now they're trying to set up a cabinet in more official capacity. They want to go against the federal government. This is not good. The last story, and this is a big one. I have to keep this one short because I'm on a little bit of a time restriction. But the last story is big. I'm going to try to get back to this tonight to go into more details. But the war in Ukraine is getting escalated. We're looking at a likely beginning of World War III before Trump gets in office. They've been escalating nonstop. When Trump got elected, Putin made a statement that he doesn't see a reason to consider the West an enemy. He made a statement saying that they weren't going to drop the dollar as they had originally planned. And now we've got a lot of craziness happening. The first thing is Russia will be at war with NATO if Ukraine long missile restrictions are lifted. So we didn't allow Ukraine to strike into Russia with long-range missiles that we had sent them. So there was rumors that was going to get changed, and Putin decided, no, this is not going to go down like this. And so they made a statement that if we lift those restrictions, he will be at war not with just Ukraine, but with NATO, because he considers us giving them all those weapons and the ability to strike into Russia as a act of war against them. That's pretty understandable. So then Biden comes out and he goes and authorizes the Ukraine to use the missiles that we supplied them to strike into Russia. So he authorizes them to strike into Russia with our long-range missiles. We already have North Korean troops in there, which, granted, they're North Korean troops. They're probably not the best troops in the world, but that's already another nation. We already know China has Russia's back. And now Biden authorized strikes into Ukraine with our missiles that we supplied. So then Putin passes this. Russia revises their nuclear strike threshold against NATO members. So since now they're considering any attack from Ukraine as reasons to go to war with NATO, as far as like a strike into Russia with our missiles. Now he's considering an attack from a non-nuclear country backed by nuclear powers. So the Ukraine is being backed by NATO, undoubtedly. And so he's considering that a joint attack now. And according to the thing he just signed, that means that he is now authorized to strike with nuclear weapons. So Ukraine just struck into Russia. They did launch missiles. I don't remember where, and I don't have a story pulled up, but they did launch missiles into Russia. And now Putin is saying, I am going to strike with nukes. Or at least that's the power that he granted himself. Not sure quite how Russian government functions, but I'm pretty sure they just rubber stamp anything he wants. So, let's see. So, Russia struck. It's being reported by many outlets as an ICBM, which is an intercontinental ballistic missile. Russia struck Ukraine, and these are capable of holding nukes. And from what I had read earlier, it was a MIRV, which is a multi-something re-entry vehicle, which is basically a missile fires off. It splits off into a bunch of different smaller vehicles that carry smaller bombs, but they are capable of holding nukes. So ABC is reporting that it wasn't actually an intercontinental ballistic missile. It was a more experimental medium-range ballistic missile, an IRBM. Either way, this is a huge escalation. If you watched the last stream, it's almost as if Joe Biden is listening to what Destiny and his friends said and is attempting to start World War III as quickly as possible so that Trump is forced to keep up the war efforts. Because these war hawks on both sides, but more particularly on the Democrat side, at least on the Republican side, we have some common sense voices saying we don't want to be involved in any of this. But there are a lot of rhino Republicans who, and for those of you who don't know, I'm sure most of you do, but rhinos are Republican in name only. A lot of them want to go to war for Ukraine because they think this is the 80s and we're fighting the USSR, which doesn't exist anymore. It's Russia now. And even though it's an autocratic dictatorial government, we don't have any business going to war with a nuclear power. This is the thing that Trump has been warning. He says global warming isn't the issue, nuclear warming is. And he is absolutely right. We should not be picking fights with a nuclear power. Even if we win, we still lose. There is no winning in nuclear war. A lot more has happened as well. There was a internet cable. So the internet, there are cables that run underneath the ocean across the world. That's how most of us get our internet. And there was an internet cable that was cut. Allegedly, China says it was an accident, but there is a Chinese vessel that has been detained, supposedly for cutting in the Baltic a cable from, I believe it was Sweden to Lithuania. I think there was another one that was cut as well, from Norway to, I believe, the rest of the world. I mean, the rest of Europe. But that's obviously not an accident. They can say it's an accident, but it's not, because you want to cut off communications if you're at war with somebody. And Sweden and Norway are NATO members, and they are Russia's neighbors. They share a border. So that's not good. We're on the brink of war. Russia just launched, be it an ICBM or an IRBM, it doesn't matter, into Ukraine. And basically they're just egging on the United States and NATO to escalate further. And we keep escalating. We have no moral high ground. I don't care what the mainstream media says about we have to protect Ukraine. This is none of our business. I don't believe we should be in NATO at all. I don't believe that we should, the founders, they said, stay out of the world's politics. We don't need to be out there. And I completely agree with that. Not that we should be isolationists. We should trade. We should have peace. But alliances with other countries only cause tensions, which bring war. And right now, Russia is continuing this war and escalating, but only because we have escalated already. And I'm not a Russia simp. I don't like Russia. I don't like Ukraine. I don't like any of them. I don't like Europe. They can all go to hell. I don't care. I don't want our sons and daughters. I don't have any sons or daughters, but I have a niece and a nephew. I don't want any of them going to war. I don't want any of your kids going to war over some stupid conflict that has nothing to do with us in a land that most people, even after all this Ukraine stuff, I guarantee you, put a map up of Europe and 90% of Americans cannot identify Ukraine on the map. That's just a fact. So why are we going to war over there? It's pointless, and it's getting escalated. And China has a vessel, so now China has reason to want to jump in, even though they're already allies to Russia. But now we've directly captured a Chinese vessel. Well, not us, but Europe. So our allies. As I've said from the beginning, to me, this is all a ploy. This war, the one in the Middle East, it's all a ploy to get the West's forces into a ground war, boots on the ground, get us invested heavily into the war effort, and then they will take Taiwan. And if China takes Taiwan, Taiwan makes 90% of the world's complex computer chips. Now, I don't know if you were around during COVID. I'm sure you were if you're watching this stream. But during COVID, there was no, there were no shipments. Cars got crazy. Everything got crazy expensive during COVID, especially anything to do with chips, car parts that take computer chips, cars themselves. There was a car shortage because we couldn't get the chips in. So if China takes Taiwan, they'll have 90% of the chips production. And then we will be at China's mercy. I'm not for war. I hope we can reach peaceful resolutions across the world. When Trump got elected, even Xi said the United States isn't an enemy, but Biden is forcing everyone's hand. And if China does take Taiwan, which I'm sure they will once the West jumps in like they're inevitably going to do, I mean, I hope Trump can get in before this escalates even further. But it's looking like they're trying to make it World War III before he gets in. Maybe even to prevent him from getting in. I mean, you start World War III, you have a national emergency, you declare martial law, and then there's no transfer of power. That's the ultimate worst case scenario. But in the best case scenario, Trump gets in and he's able to de-escalate. In the somewhere in between best and worst case scenario, Trump Trump doesn't get in before they start World War III, and then China takes Taiwan, and then we are officially screwed. So I'm going to try and come back later tonight with more breaking news on this whole war situation and more in-depth analysis of it. If I can't come back tonight, we'll see. I'll get in here sometime during the weekend. Bear in mind, I do work full-time, so but I'm gonna definitely try to come back, even if it's late night tonight, and we'll see. Hopefully things change for the better by then, but it doesn't look like that, and I just hope that we don't get into World War III over some land that we have no business being in to begin with. Thanks, guys, for tuning in, and hopefully I'll see you all tonight, hopefully with some better news. Take care.